We are now going to talk about order of operations. The order of operations is the means by which we should attempt to evaluate expressions. We start with parentheses, and by parentheses we don't just mean parentheses like this, but any type of grouping symbol. So square brackets, squirrely brackets. We could also use absolute value symbols. Anything inside the absolute value should be done before applying the absolute value, as well as radicals. Anything under a radical should be done before applying the radical. After parentheses, then we work on exponents. Exponents are powers, so we should do a 3 squared before we do any multiplication, division, addition, or subtraction. For our next level, we look at multiplication and division, and these happen from left to right. Whichever appears first, a multiplication sign or a division sign, that's what we do first. Finally, we deal with our addition and our subtraction, and again, this happens from left to right. So we wanted to look at a few examples, and I want to deal with some powers first of all. So let's consider minus 3 to the 4th, minus 3 to the 5th, minus 3 to the 4th, and minus a minus 3 to the 4th. In our first case, the power means that we need to expand this, so this becomes minus 3 times minus 3 times minus 3 times minus 3. Well, a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative is a positive, and 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 9, 27, 81. Our negative 3 to the 5th has the same basic setup. In fact, we can use what we've already started, because these 4 turn into a positive 81, multiply by an extra negative, multiply by an extra 3, and we end up with negative 243. One key thing to note here, if you have an even power, you're going to get a positive. If it starts, no matter what it starts as, positive or negative. If it's an odd power, though, whatever it starts as is what it ends as. So always positive. If it's even, what it starts as, otherwise. So if we try and apply this rule on our next problem, though, we're going to make a mistake. A power only sees what's directly in front of it. So the 4 only sees the 3. This becomes minus 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. Well, 3 times 3 is 9. 9 times 3 is 27 times 3 is 81. But this negative sign follows through, and we end up with negative 81 because that negative was on the outside. Similarly, if we start with a negative on the outside, we still group these 4 together. Negative times negative is a positive, negative times negative is a positive, positive times a positive is a positive, but then we have that extra negative on the outside and we end up with 81 again. So that's our basic exponents, especially as they deal with the order of operations. Let's look at some more complicated problems now. Suppose we start with 8 minus 3 times 7 plus 3. Well, here we want to evaluate what's inside parentheses first, and then we do our order of operations from within. So 8 minus 3 is 5. 7 plus 3 is 10. Now we can do 5 times 10 and get 50. We can nest our operators. So suppose that we have parentheses inside of square brackets. Well, we go innermost as far as we can, and we'll do with the 10 minus 7 is 3, but we'll leave everything else the same. Then we do what's inside the square brackets. 4 times 3 is 12. Notice I'm doing the multiplication first. 8 plus 12 is 20, and 9 times 20 is 180. The last one that I want to look at involves a division sign. Minus 1 times 12 plus 2 times minus 1 squared all over 3 times 5 minus 9. Well, in this case, we treat this division sign as a grouping symbol for the top and a grouping symbol for the bottom. So we just need to move through our order of operations on the top, then on the bottom, and then perform our division. So on top, we're going to deal with the power first, so we get minus 1 times 12 plus 2 times minus 1 squared becomes a positive 1. And we'll leave the bottom completely undone. Now we multiply, and notice I can do this multiplication at the same time I do this one, going from left to right because they're connected by a plus sign. So minus 1 times 12 is minus 12. Plus 2 times 1 is 2. Now we add minus 12 to 2 and get minus 10. Now that our top is done, we can worry about our bottom, our denominator. Do what's inside parentheses first. 5 minus 9 is minus 4. 3 times minus 4 is minus 12. And then we can reduce our fraction. Notice that 2 goes into both of them. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive, so our final answer is the fraction 5 over 6. And that's using order of operations.